I think it was like I used to be a teacher. I taught high school boys. So, but I think the viciousness of high school stayed with me, even amongst, boys are supposed to be more physical, less, verbal in their bullying. But this was, I saw some really intense stuff. And I thought, like, if you are this beautiful young girl, and there are so many of them and they're all lovely, and you think, well, what could possibly go wrong in your life? What could be wrong? And that was very clear. She came to me very, very clearly, and what happened at that camp, because you take away restrictions and parents and teachers, and all of a sudden it's the middle of the night with a whole lot of people with grudges. So the day after the party is the story of a woman who has a birthday party, Rachel, a 36th birthday party, and wakes up the next morning, or actually doesn't wake up the next morning, wakes up more than 24 hours later in a hospital bed with no memory of the party or of what happened. And then she has to go back and discuss with her husband and her friend and try and work out exactly what happened at the party. And it actually stemmed from a story of somebody, it happened to a friend of ours, somebody close to us, who he had this big gathering. It was a family gathering. And a day and a half afterwards, he had forgotten the entire thing. And so he could remember up to a certain point, and then there was nothing until he woke up in the hospital. And he hadn't been unconscious, he'd been awake, but he kept asking the same questions and he had forgotten the entire event. And it's called transient global amnesia. So when it happened, my husband said, "Oh, I suppose that's going in a book." And I said, "Well, yes, it is." Because, of course, how can you resist? Because what can happen in a situation where you can't remember? Can you be responsible for the things you did? And so that was what fascinated me about that. So this wonderful party that was supposed to be everything she ever wanted. And then it all went very wrong. So I listened, I'd read a lot on it. And actually, Dr. Michael Mosley, the guy who does the diets, the 5 to die. Okay, so it's happened to him. He dived into cold water, because it can happen if you dive into freezing cold water. And it happened to him. So he talked about it in an article. And I listened to a woman on a podcast talk about it, and another writer that I read about it. So I did a lot of, and there's not a lot of information on it. So I had to keep like reading psychology papers and neuro papers and everything, just to kind of, figure out what would have happened. And then it wasn't hard to put together, if you don't actually know what's going on, what could happen? What could happen if people say things to you and you forget? And sometimes when people talk about being blackout drunk, like, I don't know what that is, but what it feels like, I imagine that idea that you wake up the next day and go, "Oh my God, was that me dancing on the table?" type thing. Like, so you're there, but completely not there. So I mean, obviously, if you read the book, she couldn't be blackout drunk, but she just needed to be there, but not there. His Double Life came out last a week ago, and it's the story of Leo, a real estate agent who meets a beautiful young woman named Serena at a conference. And Leo's attachment to his marriage vows are not perhaps as strong as they should be. And he finds himself entangled with this lovely young woman, but she has very much an agenda of her own, and he didn't just get lucky at a conference. Something else entirely is going on, and it's a very hard book to review without spoilers, because the minute I introduce anything else, you kind of start to put the pieces together, and it's told in 3 parts. Leo and Serena meeting at the conference, and then we explore Leo's life with his wife Diana and twin sons. He's very dissatisfied. He has everything, but he's incredibly dissatisfied with everything he has. And then there's a second part where we're watching 2 characters, one of whom is in prison, having a conversation with somebody. And then in the third part, everything kind of connects together. But it does begin with one of Leo's twin sons going missing. And after that, the next book that's coming up is called The Assistant. And it's about a woman, a lovely young woman named Ava, who's looking for an assistant, and she finds the perfect one. But of course, that's never really the case, is it? Not in domestic suspense. But that's still getting edited. So there'll be another one connected to that after that, and then there'll be, wow, there are a few coming.